Here are some combat secrets that civilians technically aren't supposed to have access to. You're welcome. The following techniques come from a book called 100 Deadly Skills, Combat Edition, written by a retired Navy SEAL named Clint Emerson, who spent over 2 decades doing classified things in classified places that the government would very much prefer you not think too hard about. These are the actual methods drilled into the world's most elite special operations personnel. And now I, a guy who makes YouTube videos for a living and owns an embarrassing number of kazoo sound effects, I'm going to explain them to you. Unfiltered. My channel is genuinely a gift to society and I will die on that hill. The thing that makes this particular book so interesting is that it doesn't just list fighting moves like some kind of violent instruction manual for gym bros. It actually explains the psychology behind why these techniques work on a human nervous system, which, in my opinion, is considerably more terrifying and also considerably more useful if you ever find yourself in a situation where you desperately wish you weren't. The first secret isn't a punch, a kick, or any kind of clever wrestling maneuver. It's a lie. A very specific, tactically engineered lie called the nonviolent posture, which sounds like the name of a yoga retreat in the mountains, but is in fact a deception technique used by trained operators to completely mask the fact that they are capable of doing genuinely horrible things to another person if pushed far enough. Here is the core idea. If you walk around visibly looking like someone who knows how to fight, a predator is going to notice that. And a predator who notices that will upgrade their approach accordingly, possibly bringing a weapon, possibly bringing company, possibly both. However, if you look like easy prey, you keep the element of surprise entirely in your own pocket. The execution involves raising your hands, palms out, fingers spread, projecting the universal human signal of, please, I want absolutely no part of this. You can even throw in a panicked little, whoa, whoa, hey, let's all just calm down here if you want to really commit to the performance. And while you're doing that, while you look like a terrified woodland creature who has just stumbled into a very bad situation, your hands are already positioned near the attacker's head. Your own head is somewhat protected. And from that completely innocent stance, you can launch a jab, a palm strike, or go for whatever you're carrying faster than the other person can process that anything has changed. One moment you were a scared little lamb. The next you were a scared little lamb with extremely fast hands. Honestly, it's beautiful. Emerson's whole point is that looking dangerous is a liability, looking harmless is a weapon. Now, when someone lunges at you, something happens in your body that you cannot train away, no matter how many years you spend in a dojo getting yelled at by someone in a GI. Your brain fires a flinch response before you've consciously registered the threat. It's a hardwired biological function. Your nervous system sees incoming danger and it reacts before the thinking part of your brain has had any input in the matter whatsoever. Most traditional martial arts spend enormous amounts of time trying to eliminate this response because a flinch looks sloppy and uncontrolled and very embarrassing in front of your training partners. But here's the thing. The people who developed doctrine for Navy SEALs and special operations units looked at the flinch and had an entirely different thought. What if you didn't fight it? What if you just weaponized it instead? This is the foundational idea behind the spear system, developed by a trainer named Tony Blauer. In the fraction of a second before adrenaline floods your body, your nervous system instinctively tries to protect your brain by driving your arms forward and outward. The spear method takes that exact involuntary motion and converts it into an offensive action. Instead of recoiling away from the threat, you drive directly into it. Fingers splayed wide, elbows held at just past 90 degrees, arms functioning simultaneously as a shield and as something that is considerably unpleasant for whoever is on the receiving end. It maintains space between you and the attacker, which matters enormously because if they close that gap and get to air hands on you, everything becomes dramatically more complicated and significantly more stressful for everyone involved. Let's say hypothetically none of that worked. The deception didn't buy you time, the spear didn't give you room to run away like a sensible adult with a functioning sense of self-preservation. Now you need to end the confrontation immediately. No point system, no rounds. Emerson calls these the off-switch strikes, which is a phrase that sounds cheerful and is not. The first one is the index palm to the face. Unlike a standard punch that recoils back on contact, the index palm shoots forward and stays there, gripping the attacker's face and using it to physically steer their head. And here is a genuinely interesting piece of human anatomy. Where the head goes, the body has absolutely no choice but to follow. You grab a person's face and direct it in a particular direction, and the rest of F them just sort of comes along for the ride whether they like it or not. The second technique is the rear palm strike. And the reason you use your open palm rather than a closed fist when targeting the head specifically is that the human skull is hard, irregularly shaped, and extremely uninterested in doing your knuckles any favors. Breaking the small bones in your own hand on someone's face is called a boxer's fracture, and it happens constantly, even to people who have been punching things professionally for years. A palm strike delivers comparable force with zero risk to your metacarpals. Use your closed fist for soft body targets. Use your palm for the face and head. Write that down. Then there's the vertical elbow, which is honestly my favorite, simply because of how sneaky it is. Horizontal elbows require a visible wind-up and travel in a wide arc that a person can see coming from a reasonable distance. The vertical elbow travels straight up the center line of the body, directly from the hands-up position, like you're just casually brushing your hair back with your forearm. Almost invisible until it connects with someone's jaw, at which point it becomes extremely visible and rather memorable. Speaking of situations that nobody wants to be in, we have to talk about weapons, specifically the scenario where the attacker has one and you don't. Let me be very clear about something here. None of what I'm about to tell you makes facing an armed person a remotely good idea. It is a terrible idea. It might genuinely be the worst available idea at any given moment. But if running is impossible and doing nothing means you end up deceased, Emerson offers a guiding principle called the 2-to-1 rule. Two of your hands on one of theirs. You are not fighting the person. You are fighting the weapon, and the weapon is your entire focus. For a semi-automatic pistol, this involves a grip on the barrel and slide simultaneously. A firm enough hold on those components can actually prevent the pawn from cycling properly after the first discharge, which means it cannot fire again. Is this a good situation to be in? No. Is it better than the alternative? Technically and terrifyingly, yes. Beyond direct disarms, Emerson dedicates a significant portion of the book to what he calls environmental weapons, because trained personnel don't limit their thinking to whatever is physically on their body at a given moment. They look at the space around them and they ask what in this room is actually useful. A standard aluminum walking cane swung at full extension can generate roughly 100 miles per hour of velocity. That is enough force to fracture bone. A rolled magazine can be driven into nerve clusters with results that are dramatic and immediate. Hot coffee has entirely obvious proper ties as a tool for creating a distraction. The core idea is that a trained eye doesn't just see a room, it sees a room full of options, which is either incredibly reassuring or slightly unsettling depending entirely on who else is sitting in that room with you at the time.